If you are for everyone, you are for absolutely no one. Broad products do not resonate and get cut through in the market. Broad products require millions in advertising budgets to start to, just saturate the market and become the go-to brand. You can't, in your current state, emulate the advertising playbooks that Coca-Cola has access to, because they'll play a 20, 30, 40 year long game where, they are saturating your mind with their brand and allowing you to think about pulling that product into your life at specific moments. You're not playing that game right now. So we are going to be talking about how to understand your ideal customer persona and give you a bit of an understanding of what even a customer persona is and how you can use this to help your business. Because I think this is really important, and I see a lot of companies struggling with this, and I see a lot of struggles coming out of having a shaky foundation when it comes to understanding your ideal customer profile. That if you had that deeper understanding, your evaluation of your decisions within your startup would be a much easier job, because it would be clearer to you what moves you towards doing a better job for that ideal customer, or what completely is irrelevant. So what are we going to be learning here today? We're going to look at what customer insights unlock for you and your business. We're going to talk to you a little bit about identifying your minimal viable customer and how you try these on for size, and how to get over the fear of even making this choice, because I think this is one of the things that entrepreneurs resist the most. How we can gain deeper insights into your customers, and I'm going to give you a bit of a maturity model for your customer insights that you can start to move through and hopefully upwards in. And then tying that all together, how you can use those insights to drive growth. And I'm going to tell you how you can use them with a bit of a story about a university in America that changed its fortunes just by understanding their customers a little bit more deeply here as well. So with all of that said, let's dive into what customer insights unlock for your business and what even these things are. So first things first, what is an ICP? You might hear this terminology thrown around in startup circles when you're working with your development partners or designers, if they're anything like me and they're obsessed with understanding customer or being customer-centric, user-centric. You'll hear these kind of language as well from people like me. So an ICP, an ideal customer profile or persona, really is a object, an artifact that you can create that gives life to a theoretical customer who fits perfectly in your target in terms of they're suffering from the right problem, they have the right resources to solve that problem, they are someone that you absolutely love to work with and that you feel like you can do an outstanding and remarkable job for. And we talk about this point of being remarkable quite often here at Minimal Viable Launches. The reason we want you to have a ideal customer is because when you can get more of these people in your front door, you're going to have the confidence that you're going to do an incredible job for them. And as you build that confidence by doing an incredible job for them, you will become more and more remarkable as a company. And the reason you want to become remarkable as a company is because these ideal customers will then go out into the market and start recruiting other ideal customers for you. And this is how we start to drive word of mouth referrals, which some people really, really kind of look down on and say you shouldn't just rely on word of mouth referrals. But I think this is the ultimate validation that your product is doing a really bloody good job for someone somewhere, is if they start telling others about it and trying to recruit them to your cause. So this is a theoretical artifact. Your ICP never actually exists. If you look at a customer on an individual basis, they'll never quite match up to what you've defined as your ideal customer persona or profile. However, this is a mental model that you get to use to start evaluating your decisions. When you're looking at your ideal customer in this lens, you can start to say, well, if we were to create this lead magnet, would this ideal customer gain value from that? Would it move us in the direction of doing a better job for them? You can start to evaluate your development roadmap or your product marketing, landing pages you're creating through the lens of this ideal customer. That isn't to say that when you have this thing created and you have this thing fleshed out, that you stop doing research and conversations with your actual customers in the market, because this is what the trap that the ideal customer profile can allow you to fall into, is that you create one of these things and then you think that that is it. No more validation is required, and we have all of the tools in place that allows us to make these decisions internally without talking to our customers. That is not what this is at all. It is just a way in which, in meetings, in decisions, when you're creating your strategies, you can look through the lens of the customer and start to make better decisions, with the idea being that you will be more directionally correct with your thinking first time round. And as we dive into this maturity model that I'm going to give you later, you'll see that there are some deadly traps with this that you can fall into, that I want to give you some hints and tips on how to avoid. Because when these are done badly, they become the most annoying things in the world in terms of your culture within your company, because people will start to use them as a bit of a political tool to make themselves win arguments or make their decisions go their way. So I want you to be able to avoid these. Before we do that, let's dive into a bit of a wild tangent. I don't know if any of you are into space or aliens as much as I am here, but this guy here is Enrico Fermi. He's an incredible Italian physicist who came up with something called the Fermi Paradox. And what the hell does the Fermi Paradox have to do with you and your startup? The Fermi Paradox is a supposition that Enrico Fermi put out into the scientific community, in which he says, if there are billions of Earth-like planets out there in the universe, and if we believe that Earth-like conditions result in life more often than not, then why, when we look out into the universe, do we hear a great nothing? Why is there not millions of alien races flying around the universe, colonizing the galaxy, and being incredibly loud and noisy? Why do we see absolutely nothing, a scary nothing? And there are many solutions to the Fermi Paradox. We haven't actually found the answer yet, but one of the great solutions that have been put forward to this is this idea of great filters. And great filters is this notion that the reason we don't see alien civilizations populating the galaxy at an incredible rate is because there are these moments of inflection that a civilization would have to go through and survive to be able to become a spacefaring civilization that can then populate the galaxy, and therefore when we would look into our telescopes we would see all of this activity. And I was thinking about this the other day when I was thinking about customer personas, weirdly, and I think there are great filters that we can take this Fermi Paradox solution and we can apply it to your startups. There are great filters that you have to go through as a startup to earn the right to survive and start to cross the threshold from this really kind of small, fragile, embryonic idea that you have right now to something like Google, or name the biggest competitor in your space. There are gates, there are filters that you have to go through, things you need to do and put in place before you are able to attain those levels of success. And I think one of the great filters that startups go through that kills off way more startups than we maybe realize is this fact and figure that we look at all of the time, from the CB Insights piece of research that says 42% of your competition die because they make a product there is no market need for. And when we look at this through the lens of the ideal customer profile, I think we can start to see that this is a filter that we want to get you through. And the good news is it's quite an easy filter to be able to get yourself through, because all it really requires you to do is identify a specific type of customer that you want to serve and go on a bit of a mission, go on a journey to discover more and more about their lives, discover more and more about their problems, and then create products and lead magnets and marketing and things like that that deeply resonate with this specific type of customer. I find so many startups that are struggling to get traction in their market because they haven't gone through this filter yet. So if it feels like you put out social media posts that don't resonate, if it feels like you're building landing pages that no one ever puts their contact details into, if it feels like no one ever books a call into your diary and there's just not enough leads out there in the world, I'm going to posit that you are still in front of this great filter. You are still not to the point where you've gathered enough knowledge about a specific customer that allows you to create assets for your business that deeply resonate with that type of customer. So I want to talk you through a little bit how you can go about pushing yourself through this filter so you can survive this evolutionary hurdle that we can start to think about a little bit more deeply as well. So we've also, we've talked about this loads, this idea of cargo cults, right? Where, in World War II or after World War II had ended, these Pacific Islanders who recreated the American Army's airfields out of kind of plants and trees and things like that. And they expected the cargo to fall from the sky, just like it did with the American Army. Here is the thing that startups are actually doing when they are cargo culting. They're looking at their big competition in their market and they say, Lee, I understand what you're talking about with your need to have a niche or an ideal customer profile. But if I look at my competition, they've got this really broad product and it's kind of suitable for everyone. And the thing I say to them there is, that's absolutely fine, but and if you want to go down that route and emulate it, we need to emulate the processes for success that company has put in place. Mainly having a marketing budget that ranges from the hundreds of thousands into the millions. But instead, what startups are doing, they're trying to emulate, let's say, Calendly's marketing position and the breadth at which that product actually serves the market in from the starting position when they have very limited resources. It will never ever work. It will never ever be successful. Because if you go and look back at Calendly's first original proposition to the market, you look at their original landing pages, they're very focused on this idea of ending the backwards and forwards of arranging meetings, right? And if I'm correct in my understanding of the journey of this company, it was mainly targeted at product managers of tech companies trying to book in conversations with their customers, where it would always be like this: are you free at 11? Are you free at 1? No, how about half 1? Etc., etc. So they were super focused. And by being super focused, they allowed themselves to use their limited resources to create lead magnets, marketing pages, adverts, features, etc., that deeply resonated with that ideal customer profile and allowed their limited resources to get them outsized results. And they got past that great filter. And once they were past that great filter, they were earning enough profit that they could start to widen their marketing focus. They could start to add in tertiary customer types and have specialized individual landing pages and campaigns and marketing initiatives that resonated with more and more people, so they became more mainstream and broad in their appeal. The unfortunate news for you if you're just starting out is you can't actually do that. Unless you have incredibly well-heeled backers that want to lose a lot of money on your business for years to come, you don't have that luxury. You need to find traction and resonance with a specific customer type really, really quickly so that you can start to build profit into your business that allows you to start to fill up that war chest so you can survive the long duration sometimes when the market's in a downturn, or people aren't buying, or you have the high churn ratios that we see in early startups as well. It allows you to become less fragile as you build this institutional knowledge of more and more customer types and the problem that you solve. So if you're sat there thinking, I get it, but I want to be broad in my appeal, I want to remind you of this often said phrase within business: if you are for everyone, you are for absolutely no one. Broad products do not resonate and get cut through in the market. Broad products require millions in advertising budgets to start to, just saturate the market and become the go-to brand. You can't, in your current state, emulate the advertising playbooks that Coca-Cola has access to, because they'll play a 20, 30, 40 year long game where, they are saturating your mind with their brand and allowing you to think about pulling that product into your life at specific moments. You're not playing that game right now. You're playing a game of solving an incredibly painful problem for one specific type of customer. And the reason you're playing that game is we've talked about this idea of focus, and Christo from the future has this acronym for focus where he says focus stands for follow one course until success. And the reason we want to focus is it is a force multiplier for your limited resources. If I was to hold up a piece of paper and say, right, I've got this piece of paper in front of my face here right now, hold out your palm and push through that piece of paper, you would find that really difficult. That paper would put up a ton of resistance because you're dissipating all of your force over a really large surface area, which means you need more force to be able to push it through. More force in this case would be more money for that marketing strategy to work, to find traction. If instead I said put your finger out and you use only one finger, all of your force is multiplied into one tiny point, and you would rip that paper in half, and with much less force you would have the outcome that you desire. And so choosing one particular customer type to focus down on allows you to get traction, i.e. make sales, with much less resources, much faster than you otherwise would. So that's why I want you to consider choosing a particular ideal customer persona. And I know you're going to resist it, because I resist doing this in every business I've ever started. But in the beginning, we must be focused, because you do not have the luxury of unlimited resources, most likely, unfortunately. We've talked about what these customer insights are going to unlock, which is traction, it being a force multiplier, you getting results in your business more quickly. How then do we go about doing this? How do we identify what we call your minimal viable customer? And what even is that? What am I on about here? So a minimal viable customer is this idea that within your market, there is a wealth of potential customers that you could have. But we need to identify the people within that market who really, really, really need what you're doing right now so that you can get the quickest results. And there's a little visual that I've put together here of what this looks like. So the white circle represents your total addressable market. And if you are talking with VC investors, angel investors about funding your product, you've made that white circle as big as you possibly can. You've blown up the total addressable market of your product or service sky high. Inside that market, there are mini markets. So this 1 million who would just like it, the black circle there, are people who maybe suffer from the problem that you're tackling somewhat, who are kind of aware that they are suffering this problem, but maybe it's not like what we call a burning hair problem. Their head is not on fire and they're not screeching out for a solution to put this pain to an end. Those people you could focus on, but this is where we start to have longer buying cycles, where we start to become an option rather than a necessity to these customers. And so at the start of your journey, at the very beginning, when you're trying to find product market fit, focusing on those customers who are a bit meh about what you do, where it's, yeah, that would be nice, but I currently don't really view that as a massive problem. That's a really difficult place to be. That's where we start getting into this idea of, you might have heard me talk to some of you about this before, of are you selling a transformation or are you selling a tool? Because a transformation, you'd have to take these 1 million people who just like it on a journey. You'd have to educate them about the fact that this is actually a bigger problem than they realized. You'd have to then turn that kind of little nagging problem in the back of their head into a burning hair problem. And that costs a lot of money to do, right? And costs 6, 9, 12 months of time of building content, creating this really beautiful marketing funnel to pull people through, that I just don't think usually at the start you have the luxury to do. So you tackle those customers later when you're in scale-up mode, rather than where most of you are at right now, which is trying to find product market fit, trying to gain wild traction with your business by solving a painful problem. And so within that million, you can then subdivide that market down, and there will be types of customers. And those types of customers, within those types of customers, there will be a small cohort of people who are deeply suffering from the problem that you solve. They view it as a deep problem. They view it as a pressing problem. They maybe have created some workarounds to solve this problem themselves, or they're pulling in a litany of, or a string of various different products to solve this problem for themselves. They've jerry-rigged a solution. They view it as a burning hair problem, and they want it solved. And if you were to focus on those and make these your minimal viable customer, these are the people you're going to get traction with the fastest. And this is where you should focus your limited resources on converting them into raving fans, because they will become raving fans, because they feel passionate about this problem, because it has caused them great pain within their life. So focus your efforts there. Not all of your customers are created equal, essentially, is what I'm saying to you. Within your total addressable market, we want to be asking a couple of questions. Of that market, we want to make sure that they view what you do, what solution you have, as something that solves an incredible, painful problem for them. And then the second question we need to ask before you make them your minimal viable customer is, does this person have the willingness and the ability to pay for that solution? There is no point creating products for people who have no ability to actually pay you to solve that problem for them. This is where we get into this kind of like hopes and dreams territory of, yeah, people will use it, but you might have to create a freemium version of your product to get people interested in it. And then we enter this battle where we, spend a couple of years slowly slicing off and locking off parts of our product and features to try and move people from the freemium version onto the paid version. And we either find they didn't view it as enough of a problem to actually pay for it in the first place, and therefore we never should have created this product, or we find they just have no economic ability to really pay what we need them to pay to make this a viable business. So you have to ask this of whoever you target to become your minimal viable customer: can they pay you what you need them to pay you to make this a worthwhile journey to go on? Because this is not easy, and it's going to take you 6, 9, 12 months of great research to come up with the depth of insights you're really going to need to create a product that gets wild traction. That's roughly, the time I've seen startups taking upwards of 2 years to find true product market fit. So we need to make sure they can pay you so you can survive in this game in the meantime. So this resistance that I'm sure some of you are feeling right now, you agree with the logic that we need to focus, because focus gets us results faster. But it's going to feel like you're cutting off opportunity, and you're not going to want to do it, right? So you might be nodding, and then you'll go out there and you'll say, yeah, but everyone suffers from this problem. So I don't want to make my marketing messaging too targeted, because what if that turns some people off? And it's going to feel like this idea of trying on a concrete vest, jumping in a lake, and if you didn't choose the right vest, you sink to the bottom and there's no escape from it. Your business goes down. I want to say to you, that's not what this is. You are going to be running a series of experiments with these minimal viable customers, and you might change your target and your focus on these minimal viable customers multiple times. One of the startups we've worked with here has gone through, I think now they're on their 5th iteration of who they target and why they target this customer. And every time that we've made this change, we've got more focused, we've got more resonance with the market, because we understand this niche person that they're targeting more and more deeply. And they've got more cut through, and they've been able to raise money to solve that problem because there is a clear purpose to their product, and there is a clear traction that is being built. But they have changed This, as I say, like, I think it's the fourth or fifth time that they've changed their defined MVC, and I want you to keep developing that. And as you grow, you'll start to lessen the constraints that you put on your minimal viable customer, so that you can, start to target those millions who would just like it. But that is post product market fit. That is scale up territory, where you make your solution more and more generalized rather than more and more specific. And that will create its own problems in your startup, which we do not have time to get into today. But if you guys ever get to that scale up stage, you will face the challenges of being more broad and general rather than more niche and focused. So don't be scared. How do you start to get these deeper insights into your customers? What does this actually look like in your business? And how could you start to measure where you currently are on this maturity model? So I want to talk to you about maturity models. Maturity models, you may or may not have heard of this term before. It's something I was exposed to as a user experience designer, in which we would have a UX maturity model for the businesses that we would work in. We would look at how much research were we allowed to do, how deep was our understanding of our customers, how many designers did we have, where did those designers sit within the company's decision-making structure. And the aim for the design team of any business they worked in, as a bit of a Trojan horse, was to move that company up the scale to be more and more mature within its UX, user experience capabilities. With the idea being, if you got to the top of these charts, you would create products that were better, that earned the company more money, that allowed more profit to be generated, which could be reinvested back into creating better and better user experiences. And I thought about this and I was thinking, well, we could simplify it a little bit for you guys, because some of the details of moving through a proper user experience maturity model is way beyond where you need to be thinking about at this stage in your company, right? You probably don't even have a team of dedicated user experience designers within your startup yet. But here's what I came up with. If we were to boil your understanding of your customers down, this is the pyramid that would come out of this. At the lowest levels, you would have a non-existent ideal customer persona. You would say, actually, I've never really thought about this before. I'm pretty sure our product can work for anyone, and I'm going to stay there. And the reason you don't want to be there is this is where, when you start to create your landing pages, let's say, you speak primarily about the features of your product. You are running a very selfish business in the fact that it's all about you, what you do, and how you want to solve people's problems. But also, it gets absolutely no resonance in the market. No one clicks on your adverts. No one likes, reshares, or comments on your social media posts, because you haven't really created something that stops people in their tracks at this point and makes them say, oh my God, this is a product for people like me. I need this. I need to pull this in my life. So you do not want to be there. That's a really lonely place to be. So if you are there, you could start to move up this model by doing something called assumptive persona building. And assumptive persona building is where you sit down, you maybe sit around a whiteboard, you gather your executive team, you maybe gather some of your team members or your advisors or trusted stakeholders, and you start to say, well, who do we think our ideal customers are? Who do we want to target? And you might come back to me and say, oh, it's company directors with 50 people in their company earning between 500,000 and $1 million a year, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that'd be a pretty terrible company, but you get what I mean, right? We hear these, my ideal customer, and then it's these really broad criteria that people start to try to put people in a box in. The problem with these is it is completely built on a house of cards. These are all assumptions, and we have to be really aware when we've built a persona on assumptions, because if we start to use these personas in the way that I would like you to use them, that was to say, hey, like, we think this lead magnet is going to work. Let's reflect through the eyes of our ideal customer persona. Do we think this adds value to them? If everything's based on assumptions, you can lead yourself in an incredibly wrong and dangerous path, because you have the ultimate tool to say, but our ideal customer persona would like this. And I've seen this in businesses I've worked in, where a product manager has put together an assumptive persona, and they usually end up saying things like, as a user, I would like to, if you ever hear someone saying that sentence, slap them down very hard, because it's an incredibly dangerous place to be, because they're usually not the user and they are speaking from assumptions, and those assumptions are often wrong. So don't fall into the trap of just moving to this assumptive state, because this assumptive state is likely to lead you down a pathway that is wrong. Like, assumptions are absolutely wrong every time we make them. And so if you want to move past that, here's the next kind of trap that people fall into. They start to say, well, let's put some psychographics around our persona. Let's start to say, like, what age are they? What gender are they? What job title do they have? What media do they engage with? And that's useful. It starts to flesh like a idealized person out in your mind, that you could say, well, maybe I can make a partnership with that magazine that I think these customers all read, or website that they all read, and maybe we could do some advertising there, or they like this style of imagery or headlines, etc., because of the psychographic data that we've got around them. I've always found these types of personas to be really difficult to work with. I've never read one of these personas, and you'll see them. They usually have like a photo, there's like some bio data, there's maybe a little story about who this person is. Usually when you dig into this, this is based on assumptions, and if we're really being generous, maybe a smattering of looking at your customer database, the sales that you've already made, and then extrapolating from those 10 customers out and saying, yeah, our ideal customer profile looks kind of like this. These never really fill me with joy, and I've never really felt like they've unlocked those moments of inspiration in which it's given me an incredibly innovative idea for a lead magnet or a feature or something like that. Because in my mind, in the back of my head, I always know that this is a bit bullshit. Like, we've kind of just made this person up, and if we were to go and look at any one of our customers that we've had previously, none of them would match up with this psychographically generated ideal customer persona. It's all a bit of an illusion. And so I think where you all want to get to is this ethnographic stage of the maturity model here. And this is just you becoming a bit more scientific with your understanding of your customers, and going on a journey in which you are going out into the world to gather data and observations of behavior that your customers have, so that as you build these into these profiles, you have stories, essentially, is what you're looking for. You're looking for observations of stories that repeat, that you can then say, when you bundle this into an ideal customer persona, when you have this collection of stories of vaguely similar people, you can start to build strong conviction into your decision-making process to say, this is a story that repeats widely, and this is how we're going to inject a product into this story, because it's going to help at all of these parts of the journey that this person goes on. So how do you do this? You know, we've talked loads about this in this group. This is essentially you becoming a documentarian. You are looking for stories that repeat, and you're going to do this in a specific way. It's by having these conversations with your customers, what we would call doing qualitative research, so that you can gather these stories, and importantly, really importantly, you observe these stories. Because in generating an ethnographic ideal customer persona or profile, you have to make sure that the behavior and the stories that you detect are observed, because people are incredibly bad at predicting their own behavior. This is why you do not want to just go out there and ask if someone would buy a product like your product, because they will most likely tell you they absolutely would buy it. And then when you build it and you launch it, they won't buy it, because they are bad predictors of their own behavior. This is like everyone has a New Year's resolution to go to the gym 3 times a week for the next 12 months. And by January, most people have fallen by the wayside, because their intentions are different from what they actually do on a day-to-day basis. And the real goal for your ideal customer profile is these observed behaviors that when you see them play out again and again and again, you know with a high degree of confidence that this is a real thing. You're not building a product to solve a problem that is in people's heads. It's something that many people encounter time and time again, and you've seen it with your own two eyes. So you know it's real and it's verified. So you must get close to your customers, have these conversations with them. And if I was to sit down with you over a cup of coffee and start to talk to you about your customers and say, right, who is your ideal customer persona? I want you to be able to sit there with me. And one, I want you to be able to define who they are, but I want to be able to question you on those data points that you have and realize that it's not assumptive and it's not just a load of random psychographic marketing data that you've pulled out of thin air. It is a collection of stories that you've gathered from similar types of people who fit this ideal customer profile that you've developed, that you've then built a war chest, a bank of repeating stories that your customers have that you're innovating around. And this is an incredibly powerful tool that once you have this in your back pocket, you will be able to create products that grow like crazy because you're going to understand something very deep and inherent about a particular type of person. And when they encounter your product, they're going to really find it a struggle not to get excited about it, not to tell people about it, and not to pay you for it. This is the magic of these ethnographic ideal customer profiles. And they're not, like, ethnographic makes it sound like something that's incredibly difficult to achieve. It is just collecting stories about a similar group of people and finding the ones that repeat and listening to them. That is all the gold dust that you need. Okay, so how do you use these insights? Once you gather these stories, how do you use these insights to drive growth? And I want to show you an example of a company that did this really, really well from a case study in a book called Competing Against Luck, which I really, really recommend all of you to read. I think it's one of the best books I've ever read. It's from a guy called Clayton M. Christensen, who is the godfather of something called jobs theory. And if you really want to go down the deep rabbit hole of how you build a great ideal customer profile, jobs theory is the thing that you need to be researching. It is this idea that people have progress that they want to make in their life, and they pull products and services into their life to help them get that outcome. And if you understand the progress they want to make, you can create a tool for them to use that they will indeed use repeatedly and pay you handsomely for. So tying this all together, how many of you have ever heard the story of Southern New Hampshire University in the chat? Has anyone ever heard of this university in America before? If I told you this is one of the biggest universities in the world, would you be shocked? Yeah? So I finally went and found the name of this company because I'm sure some of you have heard me talking about these guys previously. This university changed their complete market position based on this ideal customer profile of a deep understanding of the story that their ideal customers are running through. And here's some of the results that they got. When they started in the early 2000s on this journey of understanding, they had 2,800 online students in total, complete side project to their business. They were very much viewing themselves as a traditional brick and mortar university. The whole online education space was pretty nascent at that time, but they experienced wild growth. And as far as I can tell from my research online, in the 2020s, they now have over 135,000 online students, one of the largest providers of online education anywhere in the world, wildly profitable, and this has changed the outlook of their business entirely, to the point in which they spun out new subdivisions of their company to handle this new group of customers that they discovered. And here's the journey they went on, right? They had pretty much a loose idea of what their ideal customer profile was. They thought it was students in America who are about, I think they go to college at like 18, maybe a bit later, who were wanting to attend physically a university and go and discover themselves and broaden their horizons. But when they started to talk to the people who were mailing in or ringing up for a prospectus of this university, they started to discover there was this secondary type of customer that they had within their midst. These were primarily people in their 30s and 40s. They were going through a career change. Maybe they'd become a parent and they were getting back into the workforce. Maybe they wanted to go for a promotion. They wanted to switch career. Whatever it was, the story that they found was that these people were dipping their toe in the water, ordering a prospectus from them as a university at a moment of great change in their life and great uncertainty. They were unhappy with the state of play of where their career had gone, and they wanted to change things completely. And the reason they only had 2,800 online students at that point is their process for engaging with that type of customer at the time was to say, you send us an email, we'll get you a prospectus in 2 weeks, and 2 weeks later you can read through all the courses we've got, you can make a decision, and then if we enroll you online, we enroll you online. Great. But as they went on this research journey, they found out that really the story that they needed to innovate around was that these potential students were incredibly uncertain about the options that they had for career change. And the prospectus was not fulfilling the need of that uncertainty. The prospectus took too long to get there, and it required too much heavy lifting from themselves to understand that, yeah, you could engage with us online, part-time, remote. You didn't have to go through that awkward experience of being a 40-year-old surrounded by 18-year-olds in the lecture hall feeling like a failure, right? There is these mini, like thousands of mini little stories that they discovered that caused them to change the application process completely. They spun out a new division so that anytime someone in that 30 to 40-year-old age bracket applied, they didn't get posted a prospectus. That wasn't good enough for them. They were put on a call with a career advisor, and their North Star metric was to do that within half an hour of that application going in. And what they found is when they managed to get people on that call, they started to close people on this online way of engaging with their university that they weren't even aware of from the prospectus. This was a highly profitable, highly successful endeavor that they went on. They spun out a new division of salespeople who were dedicated only to doing those types of calls. And this is the power. This is the power of finding that story of innovation that one specific ideal customer profile has in the total market that you are working in. If you find that repeatable story, if you have a very clear understanding of that one specific customer type, you will be able to make a little change like they did, which was don't send them the prospectus, just get them on a call instead and talk to them about career change, not the sports clubs you could join and the student union you could go and go drinking at on a Friday night. Is a completely different type of customer, right? And I guarantee you, in your business right now, if you went to that level of having those conversations, you would hit that moment of revelation that we've talked about on this validation journey that you'll go on, and it will become so painfully obvious what you need to create. And this is how you create these assets that cut through the noise. If you go back and look at Calendly's, some of their first landing pages, right? This is a product that was designed for product managers to book in these meetings. And if you've ever been in that experience, you have the 10 emails backwards and forwards, and it's a really frustrating experience. Their landing pages, their original landing pages, didn't talk about the fact that it had a integration with your Google Calendar so that, you know, it could tell what times you were free. It didn't talk about the fact you could do round robin bookings, or, you know, you could gather contact information or payment before they could book the meeting, it talked about one thing and one thing only, and it was the tagline: end the endless back and forth of booking meetings. And anyone who's experienced that pain instantly resonated with that statement, and all of their copy on that landing page was essentially about solving that pain. And yes, then they introduced their features and how they solved that pain, but the story that they were telling is how they understood you as this specific type of person. They understood your pain, and they've created a product, a world that you're going to enter that solves something that you're incredibly frustrated about. And so the assets you are creating in your business, your content, your lead magnets, things like your scorecards, your landing pages, your ebooks, PDF guides, whatever it is, if they are not speaking to these stories of pain that your ideal customer persona has and is going through, they're not going to resonate, and you are going to have to iterate on them until you start to speak about the outcomes that that specific ideal customer persona wants. And when you do, it's going to be like magic. You're going to put something out there, and this looks like, so Tim who's in the call today sent me a WhatsApp over the weekend of, we have people taking our scorecard and I don't know why, or I don't know how they're finding it. This is a great sign to me that there is a specific buyer who has a specific problem that for whatever reason, that asset is resonating with them, and they are like falling into the funnel themselves without Tim having to do a real ton of work. There's not any paid adverts behind that, wasn't massively pushing it out there on the socials or anything like that. Hopefully he will be now. That is what cut through looks like, where this, it feels like the kite catches the wind and it starts to have a bit of a life of its own. And if you're not experiencing that, every time I've investigated this problem with a business, it's because there's a really fuzzy understanding of who the ideal customer is, and there definitely isn't an understanding of repeating stories of pain, that if we built that ethnographic ideal customer profile up, we would gather. And when we have those in our back pocket, we would be able to innovate around them. And the great thing is, innovating around those stories often costs nothing other than a few words that are very highly targeted. Okay, guys, so hopefully I didn't bamboozle you with overly complex language around the ethnographic ideal customer personas or profiles. If that is still confusing, please let me know. I'll try and simplify that even further. Really, the thing that I wanted to teach you today is there are stories that a particular type of customer has in your world that if you discover and you create a document around, you can share with your team, you can empower them to innovate around that story, and you'll be surprised at what comes out of that when you start talking about that story with partners, with your team, with suppliers, etc., etc. People will start to resonate with the mission that you are on, and it will be a force multiplier and allow you to get cut through in the market. All right, guys, thank you very much. Good to see you all again. We're going to have more regular sessions for the next couple of weeks because I am in one place. I'm not moving for at least 4 weeks, which is going to be lovely. So expect the next 3 weeks at least, we will have these every Wednesday once again. Thank you very much for everyone who responded to the question around doing the office hour sessions. We're in talks about how we get that done, how we get people submitting questions, etc. as well. I think we'll do that every other week, or maybe on a Thursday or a Friday, depending on when people want to jump on those sessions. I'll put a poll in the Facebook group on which day would work best for you guys on that. Awesome. Have a lovely rest of your Wednesday, guys, and I will speak to you all soon.